Okay, let us begin. Welcome to everyone. All right, welcome to session number 217 of Kevin Reads A Course in Miracles. Okay, on YouTube and Facebook. Okay, today we are continuing in chapter 28, entitled The Undoing of Fear. Okay. And we will be focusing on section 2, Roman numeral 2, entitled Reversing Effect and Cause. All right. Let us just begin. Without a cause, there can be no effects. And yet, without effects, there is no cause. The cause are causes made by its effects. The Father is a Father by his Son. Effects do not create their cause, but they can establish its causation. Thus, the Son gives fatherhood to his Creator and receives the gift that he has given him. It is because he is God's Son that he must also be a Father who creates as God created him. The circle of creation has no end. Its starting and its ending are the same. But in itself, it holds the universe of all creation, without beginning, and without end. Okay, but in itself, okay, it holds the universe of all creation, without beginning and without end. Okay, that's a heavy statement if you look at it. And he makes a very logical statement. Without a cause, there can be no effects. Okay, that's going to become very important when we start applying it to forgiveness. Okay, and without effects, there is no cause. Okay, so if there's no effect, there's been no cause. Nothing has happened. All right. Effects do not create their cause. All right. So we are the effect of the first source, the primal source. In the Course, they use the word God. Right? We are the effect of God. And poetically, we are the Son of God. All right? We are the offspring of the original source. He says, we are the effect, okay? And effects do not create their cause. We do not create the primal source. We do not create God, all right? But because we establish the causation. Because I am a thought in the mind of God, God had a thought. All right, God extended, and here I was, and you too. All right, we're all the same mind. All right, so we don't create God, but by our very being, we establish that God is the cause. All right, thus the Son gives fatherhood to his Creator and receives the gift that he has given him. It is because he is God's Son that he must also be a Father who creates as God created him. All right, what Jesus is just saying, once again, very poetically and metaphorically, all right, because we are an emanation of the Creator, we do the exact same thing. We emanate everything. All right. the totality of oneness is what we emanate. These are referred to as our creations. All right? And I think somewhere in the book, Jesus says the creations are just as difficult to understand as is the concept of God. All right? The mind, you can't really grasp it. All right? But we do the same thing that our Father does. We do the same thing that God does. We do the same thing our Creator does. We extend everything, everywhere. All right? And thus, the circle of creation has no end. Its starting and its ending are the same. Right? But in itself, it holds the universe of all creation, without beginning and without end. All right? It just reminds me of the Catholic prayer, in which used mostly in the Rosary at the end of each decade, every 10 Hail Marys, then you would say, "Glory be to the Father and to the Son and to the Holy Spirit, as it was in the beginning, right, is now, and ever shall be." As it was in the beginning, is now, and ever shall be. All right. He said, that's the way it is. As it was in the beginning, it's the same thing now, and it's the same thing it's always going to be. All right. That's the circle of creation has no end. World without end, amen. As the prayer ends. But in itself, it holds the universe of all creation, without beginning and without end. Paragraph 2, fatherhood is creation. Love must be extended. Purity is not confined. It is the nature of the innocent to be forever uncontained, without a barrier or limitation. Thus is purity not of the body, nor can it be found where limitation is. The body can be healed by its effects, which are as limitless as itself. Right? Yet must all healing come about because the mind is recognized as not within the body, and its innocence is quite apart from it, and where all healing is. Right? Where then is healing? Only where its cause is given its effects, for sickness is a meaningless attempt to give effects to causelessness and make it a cause. Okay. The metaphysical logic just goes around and around, all right? Don't let it spin you, all right? But it's always good to, reread things and have those aha moments, right? He says love has to be extended, all right? Fatherhood, the cause, is creation, because love, which is the Father, cannot be contained. It must be extended. All right? Purity, which is who you are, which is who the Creator is, all right, cannot be confined. Right? It has to go out. It has to extend, which is why you create as your Father does, because that is your true nature, is the absolute purity. It is the nature of the innocent to be forever uncontained, without a barrier or limitation. It's the nature of the innocent, you, right, It's your nature to be forever uncontained. You're not confined to this body, to this space, right? And it's your nature to have no barriers and no limitations. Right? It's not your nature to be in a body. Right? Now remember, when all these highfalutin statements come around, just take them in, all right? And notice how I think otherwise. And that's when you ask, help me to see correctly, all right? You don't try to jump right away into the abstract, all right? Which you're not going to do anyway, unless you're just going to walk around and look like a nut, right? Because you're not going to get it 100%. Just notice how you think otherwise. And if you want, you ask for the correction. And as Jesus says, and if you don't want the correction, he says, I'll wait. I'll wait for you to change your mind. Okay? As he says, if you want to be like me, I will help you. Knowing that we are the same. And if not, I'll wait for you to change your mind. Alrighty then. Purity is not of the body. Thus is purity not of the body. Nor can it be found where limitation is. All right? The purity, the innocence, cannot be found in a world of limitations, in a what they call a finite world. The body can be healed by its effects, which are as limitless as itself. All right? All things that are miscreated can be used for healing. All right? Yet must all healing come about because the mind is recognized as not within the body, and its innocence is quite apart from it. And where all healing is, in the mind. That's where your innocence is. That's where the healing is, in the mind. Now we're not talking about the brain. We're talking about the mind. Where is the mind, they say. All right? It's not in the body. Where then is healing? Only where its cause is given its effects, right, which is in the mind. Where its cause, which is the original creation, is given its effects, which are you, the purity. So only where your Father is given the power of causation, right, and you are the effect. You are the purity. For sickness is meaningless, is a meaningless attempt, right, to give effects to the causeless and make it be a cause. All right. So sickness is a meaningless attempt to give effects to causelessness, right, to give effects to the idea of separation. Right. He says it's a silly concept. Sickness is an attempt to make separation real. The fact that I'm separated from my source. As Ken would say, that the effects cannot leave their cause. This is just as the thought cannot leave the mind of the thinker. And sickness is a meaningless attempt to give effects to causelessness and make it be a cause. Right? So the sickness, all kinds of sickness. Jesus goes so far as to say even believing in separation is a sickness. It's sick. You're outside of the truth now. So you think. Okay. Paragraph 3. Always in sickness does the Son of God attempt to make himself his cause, and not allow himself to be his Father's Son. For this impossible desire, he does not believe that he is love's effect, and what must be caused because of what he is. The cause of healing is the only cause of everything, and it has but one effect. And in that recognition, causelessness is given no effects, and none is seen. A mind within a body, a world of other bodies, each with separate minds, are your creations. You, the other mind, creating with effects unlike yourself, and as their father, you must be like them. Okay. All right. In sickness does the Son of God attempt to make himself his cause. So, when I'm sick, and it shows up in all different ways. I have a poor self-image, I'm impoverished, I'm a victim, whatever's happening to me, right? Whatever I think the world is doing to me, right? The Son is attempting to make himself his cause, right? And not allow himself to be his Father's Son. So I'm attempting to make my separated self the cause. And I'm not allowing myself to be the purity that the Father created. I'm not accepting the innocence, not accepting the fact that I did not separate. I'm not, as they say, accepting the atonement for myself, which is the only thing we need to do in this life experience here. The cause of healing, he says, is the only cause of everything. Right? The only cause of everything. It's God. Right? It's the primal source. It's the original thought, right? The original power that has no beginning and no end. It's the oneness, whatever way you can allow yourself to conceive of it. So the cause of healing is the only cause of everything. And it only has one effect. So God has one effect, and it's you. You and your oneness and your purity. And then you just extend the oneness and the purity. And he says, and when you recognize that, causelessness is given no effects and none is seen. So once I realize that, the thought of separation is gone. And no effects of that are seen. And our belief in separation is the cause, and everything we experience, everything that our senses report to us, they are the effects of the cause of believing in separation. All right. And he says, and when you're finished purifying all those experiences by having them retranslated in your mind, in the mind, he says, then eventually the cause is gone, and with it go all its effects. And don't let the ego scare you. It's a process. All right. And it's the time, as Jesus would say about the Course, that only the time you take it is up to you. Right? So in the very beginning, when Helen was writing down notes that she heard from her inner dictation, from the voice, it seems like she always had this very contentious relationship. She's always ready to question, which is not a bad thing. And Jesus said, this is a course in miracles. And Helen, being an academician, right, always in that milieu, right, she says, well, is it a required course? Or is it an elective? And Jesus came right back to her and said, no, it's a required course. If you want to be happy, it's a required course. This is only the time in which you take it is the elective issue. You can elect to take it any time you want. All right, so you can continue to live your life any way you want until you decide there must be a better way. And you open yourself up, you bring yourself to your mind, which is the miracle, and you see that you have a choice. I can see things through the eyes of separation, or I can see the world and everything through the eyes of oneness and love and peace and joy and all those words and purity, the innocence. So in the recognition of the innocence, to get back to paragraph 3, sentence 5, and in that recognition, causelessness is given no effects and none is seen. A mind within a body, a world of other bodies, each with separate minds. He says, those are your creations. Right? You're trying to be like God. So these are your creations. And you, the other mind, you think you have a split-off mind, creating with effects unlike yourself. Right? And as their father, as you are their father in that respect, because you believe in separation, you've created all these effects. And he says, and you must be like them. But then he brings you back in the 4th paragraph. He says, nothing at all has happened, but that you have put yourself to sleep and dreamed the dream in which you were alien to yourself and but a part of someone else's dream. The miracle does not awaken you, but merely shows you who the dreamer is. It teaches you there is a choice of dreams while you are still asleep, depending on the purpose of your dreaming. Do you wish for dreams of healing or for dreams of death? A dream is like a memory in that it pictures what you wanted shown to you. Right? Just as in the prior section, the present memory, excuse me, he was saying we have a memory and then all those images are rolled out in front of us. Right? And, as we, like I said last week, memories of this lifetime can pop up at any time. And then we have the reaction as if it's happening. Right? And what he's telling us is, in that section, is that you're actually remembering the moment you started to believe in separation. Right? Instead of what he calls the present memory, which is who you really are. He says you can find that memory in your mind. It came with us into this dream. As he says, you fell asleep. And into that dream, we carried that memory of who we really are. As he says in this section, the purity. We have the memory of that purity in our mind. And we go to it and bask in it and bring all our questions and seeming problems to it. I just say, help me to see this through the eyes of the innocent, through the eyes of the pure. And that's how the process works. We keep doing that with things that we think are big and things that we think are small. He says there's no order of difficulty. First miracle principle, there's no order of difficulty in miracles. All expressions of love are maximal. Right? So, the lady in the laundry room who makes me feel uncomfortable, so I say, and the politicians who make me feel uncomfortable. Right? He says there's no order of difficulty, there's no difference. I can bring them both to that place in my mind that remembers the love, that remembers the purity of who I am. And I say, help me to see this correctly. And that's the practice. That desire, that actual desire to see things differently, to not be angry or upset or whatever your reaction is. I don't want to be that way anymore. I really, truly want to see the peaceful solution. I want to see through the eyes of peace. I want to see past the disguises that are being presented to me. All right, so nothing has happened except you put yourself to sleep. And you dreamed a dream in which you were an alien to yourself. So I dream a dream in which I am not the offspring of God. I'm Kevin. I'm Kevin, who bounces off situations like a helium balloon. All right? All right, this, like the fool in the tarot deck. All right, you just go walking out there, bright and shiny, and you go stepping off that cliff. And then you go through the fool's journey, as they say in the tarot deck. All right. And he says, and you've dreamed the dream, that's all, in which you're alien to yourself. And this is where Freud comes in. And Dr. Wapnick said we owe a great debt of gratitude to Freud for focusing in on the unconscious thoughts. All right. And even, Ken would say he did a good job, just didn't go far enough, that's all. But it awakened us to the fact that there are things going on under the surface, and he says, and one of Freud's big things was the interpretation of dreams. All right, now here's Jesus telling us, yeah, that was good. And I'm telling you that this whole thing is a dream. So let's take all the symbols in your dream and bring them to me, and I will help you see them correctly. All right. So all the people that scare me or I think are doing something to me or did something to me or whatever. He says, bring it to me. These are the symbols in your dream. You know, when I was in very difficult times, there would be times when I would dream that I was either in a desert or on a train, and I was being stalked by wild, big cats, panthers, leopards, right? All kinds of animals that were out to get me, right? And, it doesn't take a PhD in psychology to know that there's something in my waking life was threatening me. Hello. And don't we all experience that? And Freud would say, well, look at the symbols of your dream, And Jesus saying, yeah, well, this whole thing is a dream, bub. This whole thing is a dream. Let's look at the symbols in your dream. Let's look at them differently now. Let's retranslate what's happening. And we do that by going to the mind where the memory of who you really are, right? We call it the Holy Spirit, symbolized by Jesus. Jesus is the solid figure representing who we really are. Okay? We go to those symbols, the symbols of unconditional love, and we bask in that love and bring our problems, right? What we think are our problems, bring them there, all right? And just desire the peaceful solution. Don't try to direct the solution. All right. So where then is healing? All right. Only where its cause is given its effects in the mind. All right. That's where the cause gets the effect. All right. For sickness is a meaningless attempt to give effects to causelessness and to make it be a cause. Right. And as he says in paragraph 4, nothing has happened except you put yourself to sleep. Right? When we decided, yes, I'm going to try this separation, it's as if we fell asleep. And this, as Ken would say, this veil of forgetfulness fell. And we forgot where we came from, who we really are. And now we're in this dream. Right. And you all know, even if you wake up from a disturbing dream, it's like, oh, that was just a dream. That's great. And sometimes the effects last, all day, or, however, a couple of days. But you're grateful you're not in that dream anymore. All right? So the miracle doesn't awaken you. It just shows you that you're the dreamer, right? The decision-making part of your mind chose and can make another choice. Jesus says that's really what the miracle is. The miracle is that it shows you have a mind. The mind is split, you make a choice. Which part of the mind do you want to exist in? Which part of the mind do you want to be the cause of your effects? So the miracle teaches you that there's a choice of dreams, even while you're still asleep. All right? There's a choice of dreams. Okay? And it just depends on the purpose of your dreaming. Do I want to repurpose my life? All right? Do I want to have my life's purpose be to remember who I really am, to remember the oneness, right? To get back to the oneness? Or do I want another, secular type of purpose? Right? I want to make a lot of money. It's not bad, but it's not the peace of God. Okay? I want to be a great chef. I want to be a catcher for the New York Yankees. It's all well and good. All right? And you could do all those things and still have the purpose of remembering who you are. All right? That gives a whole new purpose to your life. Do you wish for dreams of healing or for dreams of death? A dream is like a memory in that it pictures what you wanted shown to you. Right? So the miracle is that we get to choose, and we realize, oh, we can choose. Help me to see this dream differently. Help me to see the innocence within the dream. Help me. And then the dream starts to reflect the oneness of heaven, starts to reflect the beauty of heaven, and it's all around you. And you want to choose it more and more, and you want to let it come through you more and more. All right. So, paragraph 5. An empty storehouse with an open door holds all your shreds of memories and dreams. Yet if you are the dreamer, you perceive this much at least, that you have caused the dream and can accept another dream as well. But for this change in content of the dream, it must be realized that it is you who dreamed the dreaming that you do not like. This is but an effect that you have caused, and you would not be cause of this effect. Right? In dreams of murder and attack, are you the victim in a dying body, slain? But in forgiving dreams, is no one asked to be a victim and the sufferer. These are the happy dreams, the miracle exchanges for your own. It does not ask that you make another, only that you see the one you made, the one you would exchange for this. Right? And so that's it. You don't change the circumstances necessarily. You just ask to see them differently. Okay? But for this, there is a change in the content of the dream. All right. Let's go back to the beginning of that sentence. Yet if you are the dreamer, you perceive this much at least, that you have caused the dream and can accept another dream as well. But for this change in content of the dream, it must be realized that it is you who dreamed the dreaming that you do not like. Right? So we're not changing the form of the dream. You're changing the content of the dream. Right? We're not changing the exterior circumstances. We're changing the content, which is the way I interpret the dream, the way I see it. And he says, and so you have to realize that that you have been the cause of the negative dreaming, right? And don't beat yourself up for that. It's why we're all here, because we believed we were separated. And that's the cause of all the negative content here. All right? So you just have to realize that, yes, you chose the thought of separation, and now you want to choose otherwise. Okay. Because, I chose all these, horrible things, the murder, the attack, all right? And I'm the victim, all right? But in forgiving dreams, no one is asked to be the victim or the sufferer, all right? So if I'm asking, help me to see this correctly, I'm going to be relieved of suffering. I'm not going to see myself as being victimized. And don't try to figure out how it happens. Just desire that. All right. Leave the cooking up to Jesus. You just got to eat the meal, and you'll enjoy it with dessert. All right. But in forgiving dreams, no one has to be the victim. No one has to suffer. These are the happy dreams, the miracle exchanges for your own. It does not ask you to make another. It doesn't ask you to make another dream. Only that you see the one you made and you would exchange it. To see you made the one that you would exchange. All right? We take responsibility for believing in the thought of separation. And say, oh yeah, I did that. That's silly. I want to choose otherwise now. Okay? I want to come home now. And Jesus says, okay, come on home. No problem. Just like the prodigal son. Prodigal son goes out acting like a, big time guy. Big spender. Until it's all gone. Then he comes home. I want to come home now. And the father goes, oh, that's great. Come on home. We love you. And that's the way it is. That's how you're greeted in heaven in the right mind. Oh, come on home. We're happy to have you. Welcome home. Let's have a party. Chapter 6. This world is causeless, and as is every dream that anyone has dreamed within this world. No plans are possible, and no design exists that could be found and understood. What else could be expected from a thing that has no cause? Yet, if it has no cause, it has no purpose. You may cause a dream, but never will you give it real effects. For that would change its cause. And it is this you cannot do. The dreamer of the dream is not awake, but he does not know that he sleeps. He sees illusions of himself as sick or well, depressed or happy, but without a stable cause, that with guaranteed effects. Like I say, we bounce off situations. When we're depressed, we're happy. Right? But these effects are not guaranteed a stable cause, because my split mind was the cause. My belief in separation was the cause. And then I dissociated from that decision, and I think that the world is causing me. All right? I became, as he said in the beginning, a part of somebody else's dream. All right? As he said in paragraph 4, he says, nothing has happened, but that you've put yourself asleep and dreamed a dream in which you were alien to yourself and but a part of someone else's dream. So the world is being done to you. You're a part of somebody's dream. You're a part of your parents' dream. Right? One way or the other. You're a part of your local government's dream. You're a part of your family's dream. You're a part of your boss's dream. You know, everybody's got their own ideas about you. All right, and so we become the hero of the dream, not the dreamer. All right. So it's in realizing this that wait, I'm the one who chose to believe in separation, and I went into this dream. Now, I go to the mind and say, okay, help me analyze my dream. And the purpose of my analysis is to become happy, to realize the innocence that's all around me, the purity, right? The oneness. All right? The dreamer of the dream is not awake, but he does not know that he sleeps. He sees illusions of himself as sick or well, depressed or happy, but without a stable cause, with guaranteed effects. Okay. And he says, look, he's telling us in paragraph 6 that really all these things in the world are just meaningless because they have no real cause. All right? The belief in separation is not a real thing, all right? Because you can't separate. You cannot separate from the mind of God. You are always there. You are always loved. You are always love. He says, you may cause a dream, but you will never give it real effects. No matter how much we scream and yell, what are you telling me? This world is real. If you prick us, do we not bleed? Right, the proof that they're real. He says, you just don't realize that you don't realize that you're sleeping. And so in paragraph 7, he says, so the miracle establishes that you dream a dream and that its content is not true. This is a crucial step in dealing with illusions. No one is afraid of them when he perceives he made them up. The fear was held in place because he did not see that he was the author of the dream and not a figure in the dream. He gives himself the consequences that he dreams he gave his brother. And it is but this the dream has put together and has offered him to show him that his wishes have been done. Thus does he fear his own attack, but sees it at another's hands. As victim, he is suffering from its effects, not their cause. He authored not his own attack, and he is innocent of what he caused. The miracle does nothing but show to him that he has done nothing. What he fears is cause without the consequences that would make it a cause, so it never was. So what I fear is cause without the consequences. Without the consequences that would make it a cause. And so it never was. All right. So he says, look, the miracle does nothing, but it undoes. All right. It establishes that you dream a dream and that its contents are not true. So it undoes the contents of the dream. All right. The miracle brings us back to the mind, right, where we realize, oh yes, I made a silly choice. And the consequences, the content of the dream is not true. This is an illusion. And he says, look, this is a crucial step in dealing with illusions. He says, you won't be afraid of anything if you realize you made it up. And that's what we're asking when we go to the mind. Help me to see. Help me to see correctly. And then you realize, oh yes. I mean, little by little, you get to realize. And you won't be afraid of the idea, right, that this is an illusion. You made it up. Okay? He says the fear was held in place because you didn't see that you were the author of the dream. So the fear gets held in place when I don't realize that I made a choice to believe in separation and I became the author of the dream. And so the fear is held in place because I don't know where this came from. But once you know where it came from, the fear diminishes until it's gone. All right, and I gave to myself the consequences that I dreamt from my brother. So I gave the consequence, which is the guilt, all right, the thought of separation, the guilt and the fear of retribution. I projected them onto the other people. He says he gives himself the consequences that he dreams he gave his brother. Right? And it is but this the dream has put together and has offered him to show him that his wishes have been done. Right? So the dream tries to prove to me, yes, you did it. You separated and everybody else is guilty. Everybody else is trying to get you. Right? And that's it. Just take care of yourself. Get what's yours. Right. And he says, and because thus he fears his own attack. Right. But I see it in somebody else's hands. I fear the attack, but I see it as you doing it to me. I see it as the world doing it to me. I don't realize that I attacked my true self. I said, no, I am not purity. I'm Kevin. I am this separated body. So I attacked myself. And yet I project that out and I see others as they're causing me to feel this way. They're attacking me. Okay. And as a victim, paragraph 7, sentence 8, as a victim, he's suffering from its effects. So as a victim, I'm suffering the effects of the world, of this illusion, of this dream. I'm not suffering the effects of my cause, my being the cause. He authored his own attack, and he is innocent of what he caused. So I did it, but I'm not guilty. Right? I'm here, but I'm not guilty. And so Jesus says, so the miracle does nothing except show you that you haven't done anything. You haven't separated. The miracle will bring you to that. The miracle of realizing you have a mind and you can make a choice will bring you to the realization that you never did anything wrong. You never separated from the oneness. You didn't destroy heaven. You didn't destroy God. No one's looking to get you. All right? So the miracle does nothing but show to him that he has done nothing. What he fears is a cause without the consequences that the world make it cause. and so it never was. So what he fears is a cause without consequences. And if there's no consequences, there's no cause. All right? So that's what I fear, that I am the cause. And he says, no, this whole thing is an illusion. It's a dream. He didn't do anything. And since there's no consequences, that means you didn't do anything. There's no cause. All right? And so it never was. This entire universe. And so it never was. Okay. As Jesus said in the last session, this world was over long ago. But having been kept in memory, we keep reliving it. Paragraph 8, the separation started with the dream that the Father was deprived of his effects and powerless to keep them, since he was no longer their creator. In the dream, the dreamer made himself, and what he made has turned against him, taking on the role of its creator as the dreamer had. And as he hated his creator, so the figures in the dream have hated him. His body is their slave, which they abuse because the motives he has given it have they adopted as their own, and hate it for the vengeance it would offer them. It is their vengeance on the body, which appears to prove the dreamer could not be the maker of the dream. Effect and cause are first split off and then reversed, so that the effect becomes a cause, and the cause an effect. All right? So Jesus is just telling us you reverse everything when you project out of the mind. All right? We became angry at our Father for not recognizing our individuality. I think I want to be an individual. And God just kept on rolling. Right? Like a big old lazy river. It just kept rolling. Didn't even acknowledge us. So we became angry. He's a bad dad. He's a bad father. I hate him. I'm leaving. I could be just like him. Watch. And so we decide to believe in separation, but then that dissociative memory takes over. That splitting off, you forgot where you are, who you are. And now you think that this is the reality. The only thing is that everything that you thought about your father is being done to you by everybody else. Right? They're out to get me. Right? So everything's been reversed. Effect and cause are first split off and then reversed. So that the effect becomes a cause. All right? So that the separation becomes the cause. All right? And the cause is the effect. So the effects of the world creating me, so to speak. That's the reversal of everything. Instead of me being the miscreator of this experience. All right, just remember that Jesus is just telling us that the miracle brings us to the point where we realize, oh yes, I am the dreamer of the dream. Right? I'm not the hero who's lost wandering in the dream. Paragraph 9. This reversal of effect and cause this is the separation's final step, with which salvation, which perceives to go the other way, begins. This final step is an effect of what has gone before, appearing as a cause. The miracle is the first step in giving back to cause the function of causation, not effect. For this confusion has produced the dream, and while it lasts, will awakening be feared, nor will the call to awakening be heard, because it seems to be the call to fear. Right? So he's telling us everything has been reversed. You're afraid of waking up. Right? You think that the call to wake up is frightening because everything has been reversed. Right? And he says this is the step, this is the separation's final step, which salvation, which proceeds to go the other way, begins. So salvation begins when we realize that we are the dreamer of the dream. All right? All these words get very confusing, all right? But the message is, all right, that salvation begins by me remembering that I am the dreamer of the dream. My belief in separation was the cause of all this nonsense. All right? And he says, and the miracle just restores to the mind, restores to the cause, the power of causation. The first step in giving back to cause, the function of causation. Right? So it's realizing that I have a mind. He says that's the beginning of giving your mind the power, remembering that your mind has the power to make a choice. So you're giving back to the mind the function of causation. Right? Now I can see my dream differently. Right? I'm not changing the form of the dream, I'm changing the content. Only the way I interpret the dream, because I have come back to my mind. This is the first step in salvation. First step in freeing yourself from the ego's thought system. All right. All right. So we're not the effect of something else. All right? Because this confusion produced the dream. Okay? So we keep going back to the mind. And that will become the cause of seeing correctly. All right. Paragraph 10. Like every lesson the Holy Spirit requests you learn, the miracle is clear. It demonstrates what He would have you learn and shows you its effects are what you want. In His forgiving dreams are the effects of yours undone, and hated enemies perceived as friends with merciful intent. Their enmity is seen as causeless now, because they did not make it. And you can accept the role of maker of their hate, because you see that it has no effects. Now are you free from this much of the dream? The world is neutral, and the bodies that still seem to move about as separate things need not be feared. And so they are not sick. So the miracle demonstrates, right, and shows you that its effects are what you want. So the lady in the laundry who has I have an unsettling reaction to her. But I want to see it correctly. I go to the mind, and in time, because we think we live in time, I saw her differently. And all the other images have disappeared. All the effects, all the projections, and the effects of the projections are gone. Because in my mind, I chose a different cause. Right? The purpose was to see things correctly. The purpose was to go back to the oneness, to realize the purity. And that's all involved in asking, help me to see this correctly with sincerity. All right. And so the miracle shows you that its effects are what you want. And it is. It's like, oh yeah, that's so much better than the way I was existing. I want those effects even more and more. Now I can apply them in other places. Right. So the miracle is the first step. Right. In his forgiving dreams are the effects of yours undone. So I ask the Holy Spirit to help me see correctly. And all of a sudden there's the forgiving dream. I'm still in my dream. I'm still doing laundry. Right. But the effects are different. Right. In his forgiving dreams are the effects of yours undone, and hated enemies perceived as friends with merciful intent. Okay. Their enmity is seen as causeless now because they did not make it. I realize I made it, and I can see it differently. All I need to do is take responsibility for believing that I separated from God. Right? And nobody's going to punish you for that because you're experiencing the effects of that. Isn't that punishment enough? And we're giving a way out here because you can accept the role of maker. All right? I'm the one who made up their hatred of me. All right? And now I can see that it has no effects because I made it up. And I can see it differently. Now are you freed from this much of the dream? All right? The world is neutral. And the bodies that still seem to move about as separate things need not be feared, because we could bring everything to the right mind and have everything reinterpreted. Because I've changed my purpose. I no longer want to prove to myself I'm separate. I want to go back to the oneness, to the innocence. Paragraph 11, the miracle returns the cause of fear to you who made it. If I'm afraid, I made it up. But it also shows that having no effects, it is not a cause, because the function of causation is to have effects. And where effects are gone, there is no cause. Thus is the body healed by miracles, because they show the mind made sickness and employed the body to be a victim or effect of what it made. Yet half the lesson will not teach the whole. The miracle is useless if you learn but that the body can be healed, for this is not the lesson it was sent to teach. The lesson is the mind was sick that thought the body could be sick. Projecting out its guilt caused nothing and had no effects. Okay? So the true lesson is that the mind was sick, that thought that the bodies were sick. All right? So the mind was sick because it aligned itself with the belief in separation. That's all. And we can reverse that. I always use the example of the seminar up in Roscoe in the Catskills in New York in the 90s when Ken was presenting his seminar, and some guy was acting like a nut. He was talking, he was acting like a little kid in second grade. And he's talking and jibber-jabbering, and people had to tell him to be quiet and stop. And at the break, right, everybody took as Ken would say, we're going to take a 10-minute break, so we'll be back here in 20 minutes. And the guy went up to Ken and said, "Oh, look, I'm sorry I'm acting this way. I'm sorry. And Ken just pinched his cheek like he was a 4-year-old. And he said, "Don't you realize that you can't take my peace away from me?" And I heard that exchange, and I was like, oh, okay. You know, like a light went off in my head. I'm starting to get it, right? And the memory comes up now because what Ken told him was that there are no effects. You had no effect on me, right? Therefore, the cause does not exist. You're innocent. You had no effect on me. All right? The cause was gone because there were no effects. And that's how we will see all the different parts in our dream. Right? We'll see the effects that the miracle sends us. All right? And eventually we'll see that there just aren't any effects. Paragraph 12. I have a little notation in the side from 25 years ago. It's not on a physical level. Okay. Paragraph 12. This world is full of miracles. They stand in shining silence to every dream of pain and suffering, of sin and guilt. They are the dream's alternative. The choice to be the dreamer rather than deny that the active role in making up the dream. They are the glad effects of taking back the consequences of sickness to its cause. The body is released because the mind acknowledged, this is not done to me, but I am doing this. And thus, the mind is free to make another choice instead. Beginning here, salvation will proceed to change the course of every step in the descent to separation, until all the steps have been retracted, the ladder gone, and all the dreaming of the world undone. Okay. All right. And the carpet of time is rolled up. All right. So what he means by this, that the world is full of miracles. He's talking about us seeing correctly. Right? Then the world will reflect heaven to us. It'll reflect bits of the oneness, bits of the purity. Right? It will reflect it. That's how the world, it becomes full of miracles. When I ask to see the world correctly. And these miracles, they stand in shining silence next to every dream of pain and suffering, of sin and guilt. So next to every dream of pain and suffering, the miracle is waiting, standing there in silence, waiting for me to choose it. Help me to see correctly. All right? And these miracles, these different ways of perceiving, are the dream's alternative. the choice to be the dreamer rather than deny the active role in making up the dream. Right? I'm willing to accept responsibility for being the dreamer. Right? I'm not looking to escape the responsibility. Right? And the miracles, the things when we're, the corrected vision, right, are the glad effects of taking back the consequences of sickness to its cause. The consequence of sickness, I take it back to the cause, which is in my mind. And the cause is the decision to see through the eyes of separation. So I take it back there and I ask, help me to correct this. I'm willing. And he says, and so the body is released because the mind acknowledges this is not done to me, right? But I am doing this. Right? And that's always open for misinterpretation too. You don't start beating yourself up. You know how many times people have said to me, how could I have chosen this? How could I have chosen this dream? It's like, relax. What you're choosing is how you're experiencing the dream. That's what you're choosing. Right? And you can choose to experience the dream differently. Those are the miracles in the world. Those are the miracles standing next to all every dream of pain and suffering. And he says, and then the body's released because the mind acknowledged, this is not done to me. I'm doing this. Right? And I say that without guilting myself. Like I say, we have that Mr. Spock response. Oh yes, Captain, I realize that I'm doing this. So logically, I think I'll make another choice. It's done without judgment, without guilt. And thus the mind is free to make another choice instead. Beginning here, realizing that I can make another choice. Salvation will proceed to change the course of every step. Right? We can change the course of every step in the descent to separation. Right? Until all the steps have been retracted. Right? And the ladder is gone. And all the dreaming of the world is undone. And it begins by realizing, I am the dreamer. Wait a second. I made this up. And I'm willing to see it correct. Help me to see it correctly. All right? I need a friend. You phone a friend. Help me to see this correctly. Jesus always says, imagine yourself taking my hand. Hold my hand. And I assure you, this will be no idle fantasy. I will help you through every piece of your dream. I will help you through every step that the ladder brought you down, that you climbed down to get to this innocent victim stage, this thought of separation. All right? I will help you climb back up. And every time you take a step, the step before you is gone. And then the ladder is no more. The carpet of time is rolled out. It's rolled up, rather. And all the dreaming of the world is undone. It's a process. All right. But he says, beginning with the acceptance of, oh yes, this is my dream. This is my dream. And now I want to interpret the figures in the dream. I want to interpret them differently. I want to see the peace. I want to see the happiness. I want to see the joy. And it's such a relief that I don't have to figure out how that's done. I don't have to figure out, oh, it's because he did. You just be willing to see correctly. And all the dreaming of the world will be undone. Alrighty then. And I will see you in the next session. All right. And I appreciate you all who listen. All right. I always have that experience of talking to myself, which is wonderful. It just means that we're all in the oneness. All right. And this does me a lot of good, let me tell you. So I thank you. Bye now.